Hello, wonderful. This is Sarah, and I'm here with Melissa Whish. And you probably remember her from the last podcast where we had conversations with a lawyer. And Melissa and I talked a year ago. Has it been that long? That original
Probably.
one was recorded. Yeah. And it was such a good conversation. You have such a unique perspective. Can you tell people a little bit about what makes you unique in this space?
Sure. And it's great to see you again and talk to you again. It's been so long. Yeah, so what I do is I have a family law practice in the South Shore, Boston area. And I think what sets me apart, frankly, is the compassion that I bring to the practice. There's a lot of attorneys out there, and God bless them, they're all good at what they do. I'm not saying they're not, but I'm good at what I do too, but with the extra layer of making people feel heard,
Mhm.
and understood, which is huge. I have the part to the practice called Four Winds Advisors that I also brought online that is there for folks who are lost and not knowing which way they want to go as far as getting divorced or not. And then they can just sit with me for a one-time session. There's no strings attached if they don't want to do anything. That's why I call it Four Winds, so they can go in any direction they want after we have our session. And I lay out for them everything, how it would work, what the court system looks like, how this could proceed, what the numbers look like, et cetera, everything they need to know. Instead of what I call barstool advice, there's a lot of that out there. So, and most of it's wrong. And so then then I also do mediation, which I adore under the name of Mediation Matters. I think that's, if you can do that, it's so much more preferable. Basically I sit in a room with the two folks. I mean, they don't have to get along famously, but at least enough trust to get through the process honestly with each other, basically. So, and then I also do the representation piece for folks who just know that they have to plunge ahead with their divorce and need an advocate to do it, basically.
Mhm. I love that. And I'd love to clear up first some kind of misconceptions about the legal process because I know we call it the justice system, but it's really kind of a bad place to try to like get back at someone or get justice for years of pain. Would you agree with that?
Oh, completely.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, I've been doing this for over 30 years now, and I think perhaps justice might be a misnomer for what happens in the probate and family court system. There is no justice because it's not a right or wrong, win or lose. It's people's lives they're dealing with instead. And I think to your point about people wanting to go in there and get justice, the court can't function if they tried to give justice to everybody because everybody's story is so involved and they can't get involved in everybody's story. They kind of have to just leave it to the numbers, which is so frustrating when you feel completely wronged. And I find a lot of times there is a completely wronged party in these divorces. And they're so frustrated with the system because the judges don't see so much of what they do. And, the personality types, they don't take into consideration how much that impacts the children's lives. I think the court has to stick to the most egregious situations to look at carefully as far as parenting time is concerned. But if you have people that are in the gray area, and there's a lot of people in that gray area of just being a toxic person, to your point about the work you're doing, the court doesn't appreciate just how bad that can be for people, and people beat their heads against the wall trying to make that impression upon the court.
Well, they beat their heads against the wall. They solve problems that don't really have solutions,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then they're spending a lot of money that is not going to get them what they want, which is a sense of fairness, a sense of um, having been right. Is that what you've seen?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's funny with people, they will spend, as to your point, tens of thousands of dollars trying to make their point and get heard. But the problem is that they end up back at the same place they would have initially if they had just taken a direct line there without getting into all of that piece of it. And I get why they want to, but I try and tell them that this is not a court of morality, unfortunately. It's a court of law, and that's what they have to follow is the law. The only thing the court really will look at is if financially a party has impacted the marriage. And that way they kind of look at it as the partnership that it is. Yeah, what are the finances of the situation? Just because they stay out and drink until 3 a.m. on Friday and Saturday night, well, if they still can go home, the Monday, do their job, no harm, no foul a lot of times as far as the court is concerned. I mean, there's a reason why people's marriages are ending. And so I guess that's basic to it, right? If you think about it, everybody that's in front of these judges, their marriage ended for a legitimate reason. So they can't entertain everybody's legitimate reason. They just have
Which is so maddening. I mean, I know my listeners are just like, what? You know, and I want to point out, it's not illegal to be an asshole.
Right.
It is not illegal to be an asshole. And
Right.
when we get in these situations, and it's just heartbreaking because you want to say, yes, just, oh, good. You just have to tell your story to the judge and he'll swoop in and he'll be the savior and he'll be the voice and the empowerment that you've needed for all these 20 years, or just find the right lawyer and all of a sudden all your problems will go away. And it's incredibly frustrating that it's not that easy.
Right. Well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
But I want to point people in the right direction, into problems that have solutions, not banging their head finding problems that there's no point in trying to solve.
Right. I try and set people's expectations, basically. I think that's important. And I'll use a litmus test, a case that I had a while back with a couple. They were married 25, 28 years. And she was a teacher, steady earner, nothing crazy, but kept the home fires burning. He was a tree cutter since the beginning of their marriage. He, turns out, had been cheating on her since day one, had not been financially pulling his weight as well. And I remember the judge said to her, maybe I could do for you a 60-40 instead of 50-50. And I tell people that to set expectations, which is a sad expectation to set. But like you said, there's nothing illegal about being an asshole, basically. And there's so many of them that go through the court system and don't receive their just desserts from the judge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, I try and tell people, it's like, I completely understand your frustrations, but there are other forums for you to exercise those frustrations out of your system, other than the court system. So please don't expect to do it there. I mean, you can put stuff in affidavits that's very powerful. And a lot of times the devil's in the details. And I have to say, if you have the right details in there, you can make a difference in your case. You absolutely can. But I wouldn't go in there with the general idea that the other person is going to get, swept under the rug by the judge and pushed out the door and put in the poorhouse, because of all the wrongs that they've done.
So what are some of those details that people might look to pay attention to?
Well, it's interesting when they're looking at custody of children. These are when it particularly comes into play, and parenting time. If you have an investigator looking at your case, they ask questions like, what's your child's favorite color? Mm-hmm. What's their favorite food? Who's their pediatrician? What's their teacher? Who goes to the teacher conferences? Who takes real hands-on daily care of these children? That type of thing. Documenting what I mentioned, if they're out Friday, Saturday night, drinking and come home mean and nasty and just make life miserable for everybody. Keep a journal of that stuff. Absolutely keep a journal, because if you put enough of that in there in an organized fashion, I was trying to organize my affidavits into categories of, behaviors, and then list examples of those particular behaviors. So, yeah.
And I love that you said that, because it's a focus on the behavior so many people have. It's like, and the judge will go, a narcissist, you get 100% custody and all the money. You were married to a narcissist, right? Like, that's what people hope. And I know I'm kind of laughing, and then it's kind of heartbreaking too, because it's so not fair. But we are here as advocates for you to try to give you kind of what you need to hear, maybe not
what you want to hear.
Yeah, because your friend or your mom, he's such a jerk. You deserve everything. You need to take him to the cleaners. You deserve 100% custody of the kids. You deserve everything, right? And why that may feel empowering because it spikes your cortisol and your fight and flight, and you're like, yeah, I do deserve it all. That can feel very powerful. It's pretty intoxicating. But we are here to move you forward, to push you forward, to make your life better, to give you the tools to really be able to advocate for yourself, not just get a flip of power or the powerful feeling after a sense of powerlessness.
Right. Yeah, I think you hit on something interesting there. When these people do feel so powerless in their circumstances, and they want their white knight to come in and lead the charge and change it all for them. I find that by the time somebody gets around to filing for divorce, and statistically, it's probably about 85% of people that file for divorce are women. And by the time they get to that point, they are so angry. And they have to be to get to the over the top to actually do it. But I tell them, it's a funny part of human behavior. People instinctively do not want to help angry people. They have a harder time helping an angry person as they do showing compassion towards a person who is in need of help. So I asked them to could you please tone it down a little bit when you're in front of the judge, as far as you don't want to be up there spitting nails, because it's something I observed over the years, and it's so hard for them to take that down a few pegs. But I said, watch, you will get so much further with this judge if they can show you compassion, because you're a person in need of help instead of an angry person who just makes them want to shiver, kind of thing. So yeah, I think your personal demeanor comes a lot into play, and you have to swallow a lot at the moment, but boy, does it make a difference in how you come across to the judge and how the judge can help you.
Well, I think after a toxic situation, especially when people are saying, why didn't you stand up for yourself? Why did you put up with that? If it was really that bad, why didn't you leave? And so your friends and family can actually be subconsciously saying, you should have been more angry. You should have been more powerful. You should have been more ready to do conflict with this person, brought up more conflict, stand up for yourself, have a backbone. Right? These types of conversations that you're getting from friends and family. And I talk about feeding the soul, not the ego. Right? Because if it's the ego involved, the tool you pull out of your toolbox is the hammer. You will not do that to me. I will stand up to you. I will not put up with that. I will blame. So, and I want to say, many of your friends and family have said, if you had used a hammer, you wouldn't be in this situation. I strongly disagree. Melissa, I would love your opinion on that. But definitely bringing the hammer into your legal process is probably not going to get you what you want. You want to work smarter, not harder. You feed that soul of like you having a nurturing environment, a safe environment for your kids and your future possibilities, not this angry hammer version of you. Is that what you're talking about?
No, absolutely. Yeah. The ego versus the spiritual side of you. I think if you can feed your spirituality a little better while you're going through the process, and a lot of self-care is huge in getting you through this. Finding support outside of your family that is well-intentioned, but is, kind of egging you on to, because frankly, I think your family is feeling impacted by this as well and would love for you to change this whole dynamic so their lives might actually be a little better too.
Yes.
Get rid of this person because they're making everybody miserable here, But yeah, I think there's an expression about, how ego, when you're operating from ego, is you're looking for everything outside your world to get better, and then everything will be right inside. But if you're kind of operating from a more spiritual side, it's like, okay, I'll get right within myself, and then it all falls from there. And I think that's a great way to look at life in general. So, having said that, as far as the advice towards these people when their family is in their ear, yakking about, what they should be doing. It's how do I want to put this? I think that the people need to be able to stand on their own in general. So this is a good time to do it. I think if you're going to have the family that's going to be behind you, but this is your time to be who you want to be during this process, not who everybody else wants you to be, basically.
There is no way around learning to be your own best advocate. No lawyer can fix that for you. No judge can fix that for you. No parent can fix that for you. No best friend can fix that for you. You have the solution, the problem you were trying to solve. The solution you need to come to is, how do I become my own best advocate? And I have support staff, legal support staff, a home support staff, mental health support staff, but the work is yours. And that's what I see so many people trying to avoid. And gosh, I understand why. And I have great empathy towards that. Mm-hmm. But as we have both seen, the solution is learning to stand on your 2 feet in strength, not in looking for a fight.
Right. No, I love the way you put that, because I think you and I touched on this in our last conversation, was about playing the long game, mm-hmm. as opposed to the heat of the moment kind of mm-hmm. situation. So be smart, basically, about what you're doing. You know what your end game is and how to get there. Yeah. Figure mm-hmm. it out. You don't have to, it doesn't have to be the bull in the china shop approach to be the most effective way to do that.
It's hardly ever the most effective way that I've mm-hmm. seen, because then it looks, if you're fighting someone who's a bull in a china shop and then you appear a bull in a china shop, a judge sees I actually use that term, bull to bull, like mm-hmm. two people locking horns. Mm-hmm. And the judge is like, gosh, y'all are just a mess, right?
No, that's exactly right. It's really hard for the judge to tell who's the quote good guy in that situation. It's like a fight, there's the second person in that always gets caught, right? It's not the first one who threw the punch.
That's very true.
And to your point about toxic people that I know you deal with quite a bit in your work, they're the ones that got the other person all ginned up. And they're calm as can be over there. That's the other dynamic that's really dangerous for people to be able to figure out who's the good guy and who's the bad guy. Because here's this, and it's usually male, female. So here's this poor woman. By this point, she's hysterical and acting completely out of character. And he's over there just with his hands folded going, see, I told you she's crazy.
Yep.
And that's maddening. So that's why I try and tell people, do not be that person. Be mm-hmm. calm, be cool and collected, and don't play their game. Because mm-hmm. that's exactly what they want you to do right now. So,
well, they're in control. Of course, they're calm, cool, collected, because they're still in control, which is what they're seeking. Right. And the woman is a mess. And I'll say it that way because I think every woman who's been through a divorce feels like she was a mess at that stage of her life. So we'll say it that way. But then, if he's calm, cool, and collected because he's still in control and you feel so out of control, it's easy to point the blame and say she's the crazy one, which is what you just pointed out.
Mm-hmm. Right. So that's why I tell people to be very careful about how they come across. And, mm-hmm. Your lawyer, it's funny because it seems like people pick attorneys that reflect their own personalities a lot of the times, I've noticed. And, I've been doing this a long time, over 30 years now, and I've found that my personal demeanor is to come in, present the facts in a calm, cool fashion that is logical and the judge can understand. I never have to raise my voice. I don't have to do any of that and I'm probably more effective than some guy over here who's yelling and pounding his fist on the table and all that good stuff to try and make a point. Mm-hmm. We've all witnessed that, I think, when you're listening to anybody who's trying to come across as a good advocate, and you listen to them so much more and find them so much more credible when they can just talk to you logically, and without stirring up all the emotions that mm-hmm. some people want to do. Because judges, I hate to tell people, judges don't usually make decisions on emotion. They just don't. They make it on the law. If they're a good judge, frankly, they make it on mm-hmm. the law, not the emotions mm-hmm. of the day. So,
well, that's what they were hired to do, correct? I mean, that's yep. literally what they're supposed to be doing. We may not like their job description.
Right.
That shouldn't be that way. That shouldn't be what judges do, but that's a separate conversation.
Well, yeah. See, that's why I really love mediation work, because you're taking the court, it's an unpredictable form for people, really, because you're leaving your life in somebody else's hands. That's a total stranger. Mm-hmm. So the mediation piece, you can sit and hammer out what, I usually tell people we have this box that we can work within. Those are things that I know the court will accept. Anything you want to do within that box, we can figure out. And it gives people so much more control over their own lives and their own situations. So that, the parenting plan, that can be custom tailored to whatever your lives are, instead of the cookie cutter parenting time thing. I don't know how it is in all states, but I know Massachusetts, the child support guidelines work differently if you're sharing 50-50 custody versus if this is more traditional 1/3, 2/3 parenting time. And that drives me a little nuts because you see people pushing for 50-50 custody all the time when they don't really need it or want it even. And they can't live it. They can't fulfill that obligation, but that's what they push for because their child support is a lot less if they have 50-50 custody. So I think the courts actually created a bit of a monster in doing that, to tell you the truth. But that's what we have, and I don't think it's going away anytime soon, unfortunately.
And I've heard several lawyers say in that circumstance, it would be better to just agree to the 50-50 custody, save the court costs that you would be paying, and then be able to go back to court 2 years later and prove, depending on the age of your kids, obviously, prove they haven't been doing the 50-50 or, they're only taking a third of their time. They're not using their time. And then there's data to prove they've not taken it. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's perfectly good advice. I really do. It's good practical advice, which I love, because you're right. I mean, I'm a big believer in giving people enough rope to hang themselves. And
that's a huge statement when it comes to people. If you've been studying narcissists, talking about playing the long game, I mean, that is the advice over and over and over and over and over. Everyone is saying that no one wants to hear. No. What do I do right now, Melissa? What do I need? Can I take a picture of how dirty the room is at his house? And then we're going to take it to court. And that judge is going to say, what? You let your daughter have a dirty room? We're getting no custody. You're obviously a terrible parent. I mean, and I'm not, that's in the moment, that's what you're feeling. And these are your babies and you're scared. But that's what I'm seeing over and over. And I don't see it play out well in court at all.
No, you're absolutely right. Those isolated incidents, because the judge may look at it as that if you're just bringing that one situation to their attention. So to your point about, or my point actually, about letting enough rope to hang themselves, I'll do that in agreements. I'll actually write things in temporary orders that I know these people are not going to be able to do. It's like, I'll tell my client, just let them have it. They're not going to be able to do it. And then they're going to, and it always plays out that way. So to your point, I know people want to rush in, but compile your data, if you will. Just try and distance yourself a little bit from it and just look at it as data to prove what I need to prove.
And focusing on what you want, not what's fair necessarily or how to get back, because in the 50-50 situation, well, it may not be fair that they weren't that interested in parenting until this, they were going to have to pay. But if you're focusing on what you want, which is time with your kids, okay, yeah, 50-50, no problem. But I'll be real flexible with you. I'm happy to take them extra here, take them extra there, no problem. And then the problem you're trying to solve is more time with your kids, not making him do the right thing or showing people that he didn't deserve the 50-50 or whatever. I see people tend to get a lot farther with that strategy. And most lawyers I've talked to have suggested that.
Yeah, no, you've been talking to some good counsel there, because they've done this long enough to know, what the court system looks like, what it doesn't do for people or does do for people, and how much it will take for information to persuade a court, basically. That's where we talked earlier about make your journals, write all that stuff down, compile information, long game, like you said. So I totally agree with that approach. The practicalities of law sometimes differ from the way the law is written, basically, Well,
I had a lawyer and he told me, he goes, Sarah, we're not talking about logic. We're talking about the law. And he, he would always say, these are two different things. What's logical and what's legal are two separate conversations. And I appreciated that so much because it was like, okay. So I may not like it.
Right.
But, I woke up this morning, I wasn't God. Yesterday, I wasn't God either, You finding problems that have solutions rather than being frustrated by the laws and practices in place.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you could get stuck in that spot of, like, well, this is wrong. This isn't right. It's not just. And then you never get to your end goal, as you said. You have to kind of get past that, somehow get past that mental block. And it is a mental block for people. It really keeps them stuck in spinning their wheels and spending tens of thousands of dollars of money. I have a divorce right now with a woman who I think she is a bona fide narcissist, and she is just putting my client through the ringer for no reason. She's very vile towards me, which is fascinating because I always conduct myself with respect towards all parties when we're sitting together and whatever. And I actually have had to say to her, I have no idea why you hate me. I'm just treating you with nothing but respect. Why you're glaring at me like that across the table? I have no idea. And so, and her poor husband, he's got to keep going. That's the problem. You've got this legal system, right? And if she wants to take full advantage of the legal system, she can do that with, tons of discovery. And we're going to have days and days of depositions and all that stuff. And at the end of the day, she's going to come to the same place of 50-50, and we'll figure out an alimony award and go forward from there. But getting there is so painful with these people, and that's my frustration as an attorney, because you cannot stop the train. Once you're in the court system, they want to play it out the whole way. They can play it out the whole way. You'd have to have a real activist judge who would pull people aside and say, what are you doing? We know you're going to get to the same place, so why don't we just stop? In that case, the judge did appoint a discovery master because she could see issues coming down the road with everything. So she said, all right, I'm going to have somebody else handle this piece of it because I know you're going to clog up my court system with all these little tacky things that you're bringing to my attention. So, in fact, she went so far as to say, I do not want to see people back in my courtroom until November. And so she's, so that's the frustrating thing. If you run into person like that who's determined to make this as miserable as possible, they can do it, unfortunately.
So not fair. Is there any last piece of advice or things that people maybe make assumptions about the court system or legal system or lawyers that when you're in the inside isn't true, but can be an assumption from the outside?
I think an assumption from the outside is that all lawyers have to be jerks to be effective, and that they don't. Especially family law, it's an arena where if you find your own attorney and a like-minded attorney where they can sit down and work it out for what's best for the kids, what's best for both of you, I think that's your best bet. I think the misconception is out there that you have to have a pit bull, and you don't. That would be my best advice to people is if you're not comfortable with a pit bull, you don't need a pit bull. You just need somebody, frankly, who's going to listen to you, who's going to hear what you have to say, instead of running your divorce the way they want to run your divorce. They run your divorce the way you want to run your divorce, within reason, of course. But I think you find somebody that can do that for you, and that's important. Thank
you so much, Melissa. Tell people where they can find more out about you.
Okay, so as I said, I'm in the Boston area. I'm in a town called, my office is in Rockland, Mass. And I'm in the Cornerstone building, and I have a new website coming up. It's going to be melissawhishesq.com, and it's melissawhishesq.com. So that's exciting. That will have all the information you'll need on both Mediation Matters and Four Winds Advisors and my representation practice as well. So,
awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm sure we'll have you again. You're one of my favorite regulars.
I enjoy our conversations immensely. I really do, because you have a really good insight as to the workings of the court systems and the dynamics of divorce that a lot of people don't bring to these conversations. So I very much appreciate that.
Things I never thought I would hear as a little girl, right?
Exactly.
No, but my own lawyer, he's like, you should have been a lawyer, Sarah. You should have been a lawyer. And I'm like, I think I'm doing just fine. But it is such a crucial piece of this process in people's lives. And I do want to understand as I know you do, to be able to help people and help make something miserable a little bit easier.
Oh, absolutely. That's what I always say, that I'm here to make it better, not worse. You know, some lawyers, I swear to God, they make it worse, not better.
I agree. Yeah.
You know, so that's not my job.
Well, thank you so much for helping my job easier today and helping us on our journey to becoming toxic person proof.
Absolutely. Thanks.